Mods and additions to games, even old ones, are posted to the internet in a constant stream. Some are helpful, some are fun, some are weird, some add new content to the game. Occasionally, a mod or map of a game will come out that will entirely change the purpose and experience of the game in a stunning and creative way. Such is the case with MyHouse.WAD, a map made for Doom 2 that is not only a gorgeous technical achievement, but also tells a unique and curious story. Today on the Panopticon Theatre, we will be looking into the twisting labyrinth of this map and laying out its story. Firstly, I want to say that this game is best experienced first before watched. If you haven't yet, and you have the capability, please go and play through this map yourself first before watching this video. When you go to download it, you'll see other files in the folder. Don't touch any of them, and download myhouse.pk3 to play for yourself. To clarify for those that don't know, a Doom WAD is essentially a pack of maps and data for Doom and Doom 2. Some add levels, some add whole new elements, but they all use the Doom engine to build upon to develop their own vibe. We will not be delving today into the technical parts of MyHouse, as many other YouTubers more knowledgeable than me have already done so, but to put it simply, anyone playing MyHouse who is familiar with Doom map making would be impressed by the skill used to make this WAD. It utilizes techniques and technology to build its world in a fantastically creative and disorienting way. Even those not familiar with the scene on tools may find it arresting, or they may not even notice considering how stealthily the game manages to pull off its magic tricks. But it's pretty safe to say that if you're at all familiar with the tools this game is made with, it may have that little bit of extra magic for you. That all said, what is MyHouse? A user named Veg released this map on March 3rd, 2023. Excited to finally release this tribute map. Last August I lost a good childhood friend of mine and took it pretty hard. When I was visiting my hometown for his funeral, I connected with his parents, who shared with me some of his old belongings. Among them was a copy of an old map of his backed up on a 3.5 floppy from high school. Thomas and I were into amateur Doom mapping in the early O's, but I'd never seen this map of his prior to uncovering it on one of the old floppy disks. As a way of paying tribute to him and all the great memories we had together, I took the plunge and installed Doom Builder in order to polish up this map and add a few modern amenities just for convenience sake. He describes the map as not much of a challenge and roughly 10 minutes of playtime. He also includes a link to this picture. Starting the game feels very much like your standard Doom map created to reflect a real-life building, made very well and full of little Doom Q items. There's a kitchen with various appliances and kitchen-y stuff, a living room with a PlayStation. There's a couple bedrooms and a nice bathroom, which has a yellow keycard in. There's also a utility room with a red key door, and a small toilet. Downstairs is a rec room, an office, storage rooms, another bathroom, and a boiler room connected to the garage. As stated earlier, you may notice if you're a Doom mod aficionado that this house in itself has been made with a surprising amount of technical skill, enough that it might feel a little off-putting, considering the way it was advertised making it sound like a pretty simple map. The downstairs bathroom was locked with the yellow keycard, so grabbing that first, we can head in. The red keycard is here. This opens the cupboard that gives us the blue keycard, which could let us out to the front to exit the level. Before going there, looking around a little, you may happen to glance outside and notice a soul sphere floating outside on this pillar. For those unfamiliar, this is essentially a big power-up item. You might think you missed that earlier if you looked around outside. However, if we do head out here, we can see the soul sphere appears to not be there on the pillar. Weird. And even weirder, if we look back to the house, we can see new enemies and items in the rooms. The weird part of this is not just the enemies, but the windows themselves. If you took a look around outside when you arrived, these windows weren't there at all. The bottom of the house was just walls. Clearly something is different. Heading back inside, something shifts. It's subtle, as this game often is, but there's a change. The music seems to restart as you walk back in, but as you listen, you may notice it's not quite the classic Running from Evil song, but instead a slightly different version, a little discordant and wrong in places. Doors, instead of sliding up, now open like proper doors, mirrors reflect. The PlayStation is an Xbox, and it's so delicate of a change you may not have even registered it, but the animations for the weapons is now updated, slightly smoother and cleaner. The map also plays the Discord notification sound every now and again, which is just weird to hear. It's also minute, you might only notice a couple of the changes at first, and it's just that little bit unsettling and destabilizing. And now if we do want to leave, returning to the gate reveals we now need a blue skull to leave. Speaking of, we are now collecting skull keys instead of cards, and the red door that was once a cupboard now leads to a dark staircase leading to the attic, which conveniently happens to have the blue skull key. There's also a covered mirror we can reveal. We head back down to leave and we can't. The doors aren't locked, they're just gone. You may be familiar with the house enough at this point to realize this corridor has changed too. This is wrong. This section of the corridor not only wasn't there before, but it also can't spatially exist. It leads to what appears to be another living room, if a little bit differently decorated. And we can pick up this Pepsi can here. I want pop. Okay, there's nothing else to do here, so we leave, and there's another new, impossible door. It's the house, structurally, but different, a different palette. The only thing to be found is this milkshake. The kid needs a milkshake. Back through the door, what now? If we walk back near the front door area, there's a sound to be heard. Downstairs, we find a bookcase is shifted, revealing a breaker. Let's press it. Darkness and screams. The house has been ravaged, seemingly by a fire. Everything's in ruin. We can find 3 objects here. A photo frame, ruined memories. A notebook, tarnished history. And a teddy, innocence lost. If we look up, we can see the fire-red sky, but no sign of the attic we were in only a short while ago. We also can't go through the cupboard we used to access it before. Who puts an attic stairway in a cupboard like this anyway? If we head back downstairs, it's changed. It's all a bit flat. Heading through the boiler room, the door that once led to the garage now leads here. Rows and rows of concrete apartments. You may find this slightly familiar if you're familiar with the backrooms concept. This visual of many apartments or rooms in a wall like this is often present within that. And as unsettling as this already is at first glance, it becomes even more eerie as you realize wandering around that we're still in the house, or at least in the same layout, mostly. The scale is off, and it's also a maze of dead ends and empty concrete rooms and designs that don't really make sense spatially. There's dogs here, 2 of them. One sweet good dog who follows you around, and one bad dog. These 2 are linked together. If one dies, so does the other. Navigating this concrete maze eventually leads us to what appears to be a parking garage. Of an airport? Let's check the departures board first, I suppose. There's a flight home, but it's cancelled. The only one on time is to Dallas. The airport has some general amenities such as bathrooms. The men's is uneventful, but there's an empty pill bottle in front of the women's. Refill needed. And if we circle around the sinks, we start to see blood reflected in the mirror. Then it covers the room and monsters show up. When we leave, we see it is now the men's bathroom. Also, there's a full pill bottle. Feeling fine. Also, did you notice? The airport is also the house. There's nothing left to do here, so let's go take our flight. In the cockpit, we can press to start an alarm and more monsters show up. In the back of the plane, we leap out an open door into the air and land back in the house. Not as it was though. It seems older, abandoned. It's been cleared out and it's got a pervasive sense of emptiness. But the doors are back, so we can leave. Navidson Realty. Perhaps it's time to mention this game's deep association with a certain book, House of Leaves. This is the most overt reference to it. Navidson is a direct name from the book, but my house is filled with references and connections to it. We'll talk more about what House of Leaves is and its connection with my house in the review section, where we can evaluate it in more depth. Either way, a house has been sold as land it seems, and we can now finish the level and play through Underhalls, the Doom level. As you may have gathered, this is an ending, not the ending, but an ending nonetheless. Playing through Underhalls is a good idea, since once we finish we can go back to the start of my house with all the stuff we picked up there. From here, what's next? Well, something you may notice after a point is these images on the wall. These seem to display the little collectibles we've been finding. This is what we want to aim for, getting more of these artifacts. How do we find more though? We have to move on without triggering a house fire. This is hinted at in a few places. In the message if you turn on and off God mode, there's no good outcome from a house fire. And also in the journal in the Google Drive, which we'll examine in depth later. The other hint, when you turn on God mode, hints at something to do with the mirrors. The attic mirror shows something we can't reach, a bauble, but there's nothing to be done here. While we're looking for other mirrors, let's turn on all the sinks as we go, including this one in the monochrome room. This will let us access stuff later, but for now, mainly this rubber duck in the bath. It's an artifact. Back to mirrors, and here, as also hinted in the journal, we can pass through a mirror into a mirrored house. There's 3 more artifacts to be found here. The Christmas ornament we saw in the attic mirror. Christmas makes me happy. A milk bottle in the crib. It wasn't meant to be. And the wine bottle in the kitchen. Drunk buddy. There's also a different artifacts board here. 16 in total. We can leave this level via the front, which leads to a mirrored underhalls, but there's no reason to do this and you lose your weapons doing so. We can go back through the mirror though, and there's now a trail of colourful balls on the ground, leading to a side tunnel to a nursery. It's ominous and run down, but hey, at least Shrek is here. Once again, the nursery is also the house in layout. There's 2 artifacts in here, a baseball, autographed by J.J. Hardy, and a box of crayons, adult colouring books. After we grab those, we can head through a new door, leading through to the playground outside, and on the swings, we can find a stuffed toy. Snugs. Also, Shrek's here. He drops the gate key, which leads us back to the house. Remember how I said turning on the sinks would help us later? Now it's time to return to the bath and enter it. We sink into a flooded version of the house. Some exploring leads us to a looping corridor downstairs. Following it round takes us to a swimming pool type area, a bathhouse if you will, and indeed it is once again the house. The scenery again may be familiar if you've seen this concept within the idea of liminal spaces. In a pool with an unfriendly fish, we can find another artifact, the D20, which for those unfamiliar, is a type of die typically used in TTRPGs. Roll for intercourse. We can swim down a tunnel here, and into a maze we have to swim through, which eventually leads to this place. Crossing this bridge is tricky, and halfway through we need to make a turn to grab another artifact, the wedding ring. I do. Getting to the end leads us to the concrete maze. Last time, we had to trigger the fight to get here, so it's been a while. We can find 3 artifacts here. A pumpkin, Pumpkin Rick, a frisbee, good doggies are good doggies, and a can of tuna. Kitties love tuna. Again, the dogs are here, but let's not kill them. We can now get back to the airport, and make sure to grab the pills from the woman's room again. Time to fly home. If you miss any artifacts before this point, you get another ending, similar to the first, but the house is just empty as if everyone has moved out. Leaving gets us the sold sign again. But we grabbed them all, so we can keep going. Back in the house, the painting of flowers on the wall has transformed and now shows a secret gap in the fence. Going through it, we find a dark road late at night, which we can follow to a crashed car with music playing. Incidentally, the song is known as the most mysterious song on the internet because nobody knows where it came from exactly or who sang it. Following the headlights leads to a shell, or a hell station. In the storage room, we can find a game controller. It's my turn. The bathroom takes us back home. The Mirror Reality's version of this painting is now different too. The gas station, it seems. So let's head there in the Mirror Reality. There's no car this time, just a torch. The station's blocked off by police tape though, and bloody. We can navigate to a small campsite. On a tree, there's a carved heart, S+A. We can open the tree here, which leads to a beach area. It's just a set though, and if we go around, we can touch this clapperboard, which ends the map. This is another ending, but not the true one. It's reminiscent of this paragraph from the journal. February 26, 2023. I can no longer tell what elements of this map are my friends, which are mine, and what the map has created. I'm no longer afraid that the map is creating itself. It needs me just as much as I need it, which reminds me of a dream I had the other night. I'm not sleeping much, but I recall this one with surprising clarity. I was standing on a beach, staring out at the placid water, the ocean stretching out as far as the eye could see. Seagulls cawed overhead, and the gentle caress of water lapped the sand in front of me. I dipped my toes into the water. At least I tried. There was no water, no ocean. It was an illusion. I realized everything around me was fake. The trees, the birds, the sand. It was all a one-act play, and I was Willie Loman, a damned fool who believed in something greater, but there was no happiness to be found. I wandered the set only to find myself staring into oblivion. It was the end of time itself. No joy, no misery, no sadness, only emptiness. Men of faith tell us the afterlife is for eternity, but is it possible to keep your sanity for eternity? A day passes in the void, a month, a year, 2, 5, 10. Is this an eternity? 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. I've sat in this room for 1,000,000 years now, entertaining the same thoughts, pondering the same questions, and ruminated on every mistake in my life, anguishing over them for centuries. 1,000,000,000 years now, double that. I'll double it again. I'm still nowhere close to the end of eternity. I pray for death, but it never comes. Just me, and my thoughts, and my mistakes, and my insecurities, and my regrets, and my loneliness. Somewhere, in another dream, the version of myself that winked back is sitting on the real beach, happy and content, knowing life is finite, there is no afterlife, and happiness is found in the small things around us that we can control. Happiness has to be fought for. This fake beach brings us no happiness, so when we open it, we have to immediately turn away, and start fighting for it. This archvile is practically unkillable, so it's better just to run, back to the house, and through the mirror to the regular world. There's a lot of monsters here too, and it's tricky navigation, but we need to get back to the gas station again. The station is surrounded in monsters and darkness, and it's a tough fight, but we fight our way through and down the road to the campfire spot, and through the tree. We have found the one secret of this map, and the true end of the game. A beautiful, real beach at sunset. And if you didn't kill the dog, they're here too. It's peaceful and lovely and well earned after everything. So there we have it. Already this game clearly has an incredible story to it hidden behind concrete walls and dark mazes, but we're not quite there yet. Let's cover the last couple things before we dive into the analysis. There are a couple spots in the game that we don't need to see to finish it. Let's have a look at those. No clipping out of bounds anywhere leads you to the backrooms, where a monster will chase you in the maze. There's not much of import to find here. An alternative backrooms can be found in the mirrored underhalls, weirdly. Dying and not respawning for a while will cause you to appear in a hospital. We can find a room key that leads to a room with closed curtains around a bed and a flatlining monitor. A person looks to be sitting up in the bed despite the flatline. Another empty pill bottle can be found here. An AED will spawn you back where you died with a berserk pickup once per game. In the concrete maze, you can jump out at certain points into the windows on the other side. One has a megasphere, and another has a TV, which seems to show itself. You can unplug it, which turns your screen black, and if you replug it, the TV and every single other TV in the game will now show static snow with the words CHO3 or Channel 3 displayed. Another maze can be found from a small chance opening the cupboard in one of the bedrooms. This one is dark, silent, and unnerving. There's a couple of locations within this, but again, nothing of immediate import and nothing that actually does anything. This one appears to be another direct House of Leaves reference, which we'll discuss later. Though there's really nothing in here, the oppressive silence and darkness is beyond unnerving. Finally, if you collect all the artifacts but then choose to go through the burned house to ending 1, you can actually open the hidden passage in the fence and find a QR code. This is where we find this image. We'll review it properly in just a moment, but it tells us importantly that Steve Nelson actually died on the same day as Thomas. But we haven't even discussed who they are yet, so let's get into the Google Drive and see what we learn. The map was posted with the account Veg, and the Google Drive files are credited to a Steve Nelson. These are also connected together in a text file in the drive, so we can neatly assume Steve and Veg are the same person, at least. The files shared in the drive provide a little bit more context for certain points. Let's look through bit by bit. The files folder includes the game download files, of course, including the actual MyHouse.WAD file with just the regular house, and a text information document. This document is pretty straightforward, but in the no redistribution warning, we're told that the author does not want us to have the game. They don't want to distribute it, but it went online anyway, and the map evolved without their input. They speak here with despair. The map wants you to feel sad, alone, desperate. Don't let it win, don't play it. And yet on the forum post they express their excitement to post it. And of course, there's the fact that the post obviously and conspicuously doesn't mention anything other than the standard house map. Is this even Veg posting? In the photo section, we have who we can assume to be Tom and Steve, a Polaroid of the gas station, likely the same one in the game, plus Tom's obituary. We also have photos of an album full of more pictures. Some are of the familiar house, the hallway, the living room and kitchen, the downstairs which also has a dog in it. There's also a photo of a cat, potentially Tom's cat Scrambles, who is mentioned in his obit, and he seems to care deeply for. The others mostly seem to be high school photos, mostly of large groups. There's both the girls and boys cross-country teams, which we know Tom was a part of, and this might also be the track team, which Steve was in. The others seem to be general fun high school memories. I'm not familiar enough with American high school clubs to know if any of these have further relevance. The journal is by far the most in-depth part of the drive. I won't read it all out to you, as it's too long for that, but I'd recommend reading it yourself if you're curious. Basically, it re-establishes the basic story, then walks us through Steve's experiences whilst fixing up the mod. One thing you'll probably first note is that the word house is displayed in blue every time. This is another House of Leaves reference that we'll discuss later. The first thing he comments on is a sketchbook. There are 3 sketchbook drawings in the drive, a drawing of either many dogs or a dog with many heads, a sketch of the house from outside, and a drawing of a blue keycard. The following entries as he develops the game often cover his dreams. These dreams connect to parts of the map and occasionally provide hints of where to go in the game. Dreams of a baby crying in the attic, then finding a stillborn in the daycare, of drowning in a bath, of going through a mirror, and one of a house fire, but this one is crossed out. There's one of a car crash where he finds a gas station and a taxi driver takes him to hospital, and one of an aeroplane crash. There's also red highlighted numbers in the dates of some of these dreams, which I think represent the order you're supposed to see the scenes in these entries in the game for the true ending. This is likely also why the house fire entry is crossed out, because you're not actually supposed to go there. There's no good outcome from a house fire. The journal also covers how his excitement over fixing up the map changes to dread as he slowly spirals, feeling like something wants him to work on the map, and how things appear in the map that he doesn't remember adding. The map won't let him rest. On February 14th, he posts about someone he calls the only person he ever loved, and how he misses them. Then, there's a long rambling account of a dream, where the date text clips into the paragraphs. The dream I read to you before, of standing on a beach set, slipping into insanity for eternity. Happiness has to be fought for. Finally, he tries to upload the original MyHouse file, but the PK3 gets uploaded anyway. The map wants to be out there, I guess. Now, let's talk about Steve and Tom, and analyze what I think happened to them. Steve claims that him and Tom were childhood friends. I think that claim is not exactly accurate, not in every time at least. We'll discuss the fact that it's weird Steve's apparently dead at all in a moment, but for now, let's take it at face value. They both died on the same day, in the same town, and they're sharing a funeral service. Their obits both say they reconnected with and married their childhood sweethearts, who are referred to with neutral pronouns, but neither of their partners is mentioned in the survived by section. The the wedding ring artifact, the obits, I think it's pretty safe to say that these two were more than friends, and it sounds like they were husbands, but Steve is insistent in the journal to only call them friends. It could very well be that there's multiple timelines in play, explaining the themes of mirroring in the game. In one life, he moves away and isn't killed alongside Thomas, who likely dies in the fire alone, considering that's the only dream Steve says is real. But Steve's life is bleaker and lonelier, represented by the mirror world being generally darker. He avoids confronting anything, and does not fight for his happiness, as it were, leading to the fake beach ending. In the other timeline, Steve ends up with Thomas and they get married, and the house fire kills them. His life is shorter, but he can accept to enjoy the things he experienced during it, as he says in the beach dream. Something I never mentioned is the wording of this line. Somewhere, in another dream, the version of myself that winked back is sitting on the real beach, happy and content. The winked back perhaps suggests that the timeline splits based on whether or not he chooses to be with Thomas. In the fake beach end, the heart graffito is only half completed. In the real beach, it's fully completed. Maybe we're seeing in the journal, quote-unquote bad timeline Steve, who never stayed with Thomas, and that's why they're only ever childhood friends and nothing more. The obits are from the other timeline where they were together. That would explain the inconsistencies. It also might explain why Tom's sketchbook was apparently so dark. This timeline is not only bad for Steve, but him too. I'll call them the good and bad timelines for simplicity. The only part that contradicts any of this is the heart graffito. We can assume S is Steve, but A? We haven't seen any mention of an A. There is the possibility that it still refers to Tom, however, as his surname is Allard, and it could be that he was referred to by that as a nickname. I've also seen the theory that A refers to Tom's dead name, and the graffito is from pre-transition. There are vague hints that one of them might have been transgender. For one, there's the whole bathroom thing in the airport, fighting a bloody battle through being a quote-unquote woman to emerge from the other side a man perhaps. The pills could also be connected, but they also seem to be related to the whole hospital thing too, so who knows. The fact that we see photos of both the men's and women's cross-country teams in the album is maybe also related. They're very small hints, but hints nonetheless, and honestly, every hint in this game is a very small hint, so we'll take what we can get. This would line up with them being high school crushes if Steve was still referring to Tom by his dead name at that time, and this type of graffiti is more of a high schooler thing to do anyway. The artifacts, locations, and particular journal entries all seem to point to particular events within their lives, both together and apart. As much as I can gather, it seems they were likely very close friends in high school. It sounds a little bit to me that Steve might have had a slightly rough childhood. His father's dead, and his mother has several listed last names, meaning he probably had several different stepfathers, and the wording of the milkshake pickup sounds pretty harsh to me, but the two of them bonded, mostly over games probably. They went to different colleges, and Tom moved to Wyoming, but in the good timeline sometime later they met again and married in 2020, moving back to Illinois. The house is probably their shared home there, as they moved into Tom's childhood home. In the bad timeline, they didn't get back together and spent their lives apart, until Steve hears of Tom's death, as he says in the journal. We could go through each item and location and try and break down individual events, figure out which timeline they happened in and what exactly happened, but honestly, they're all so up for interpretation and down to guesswork. I think it's a little more fun to take guesses individually, but if you have any unique takes on them, let me know in the comments. There are some interesting ones though. Let's look at them. I want to remind you not to take the dreams in the journal too much as direct retellings. Dreams rarely make sense, and they are our brain's way of processing events. That's why dreams are often nonsense or random, but seem to have themes or meanings to them. Steve does reference a play in his beach dream, Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. In it, many events are told through memory and recounted unreliably. I think this is a good comparison here. Not only are dreams already convoluted enough, we're seeing the memories from the mind of our narrator, who we know to be at least reasonably unreliable, considering he's clearly not coping that well. Also, I think if we do think of the multiple timelines idea, the dreams might only be events from the timeline that didn't happen to our journal writing Steve, so he wouldn't necessarily understand them himself anyway. Several things are related to babies, or more accurately, the lack of babies. We have the crib in the attic with the bottle and the whole daycare situation, plus the dream from the journal. It could be because in the good timeline they wanted to have a child but were unable to do so physically and maybe for some reason couldn't adopt, or more likely in my opinion, they never had time. They were only married 2-ish years after all. I think the stillborn baby symbolism also suggests that they could have had kids if they had more time. The dog is an interesting one. The photo with the dog in it maybe looks a little older, and when we see the dogs in the concrete maze, which one is in an area is based off the size of that section. The bad dog is in the section where the map is bigger, which makes you feel smaller. Maybe Tom had a dog as a kid and was afraid of it, but as he got older he realized it was a good dog. The aeroplane crash is one I can't connect to much. What do you guys think of it? The car crash also seems to have happened at some point in one of the timelines, but exactly what happened there, I don't know. Either way, it's more than just a map. It's a shrine to the life he lived and the one he could have lived. As he says, Somewhere in another dream, the version of myself that winked back is sitting on the real beach, happy and content, knowing life is finite, there's no afterlife, and happiness is found in the small things around us that we can control. Happiness has to be fought for. If you've heard of House of Leaves prior to now, or even read it yourself, you may be familiar with its reputation. Released in 2000 by Mark Z. Danielewski, this book is famously convoluted and twisting. Its pages are laid out in a complex format, and it really takes 2 or 3 reads to fully take in the story, or rather stories, as there are multiple narrators with multiple perspectives. It's honestly a really tricky book to read. I actually only fully managed it recently. It has been described as challenging the very concept of what a book is. As I mentioned when we saw it in the game, Navidson is a name from the book, the surname of Will Navidson, the main character of what you could call the primary narrative. This tale follows him and his family after they move into a new house, which slowly reveals itself to be more than that. New doors appear, impossible spaces open up, and in particular a great, dark, plain maze. They too find an endless staircase, and hear an occasional low growling. The house eventually turns on its inhabitants, killing Will's brother and forcing the family to flee. Will returned alone and became lost in the maze. He's seen reading a book called House of Leaves on his cameras, which he burns for warmth. Eventually his partner returns and finds him, and they appear outside. This isn't the extent of it, of course. This is actually a narrative written up by a guy called Zampano, whose death leaves another man named Johnny Truant to find and complete the work, leaving his own notes alongside. Their notes and comments are contradictory, disputing the truth of the story of the Navidsons. My House is clearly directly influenced by House of Leaves. Beyond just the obvious parallels, the dark corridor, the endless stairway, the impossible doors, there's also direct thematic references. The story of the Navidsons is a tale within another story that serves as a vessel for communicating its themes, just as the story of Steve and Thomas is contained within the vessel of My House. The house in House of Leaves is often interpreted to be a representation of grief, of obsession, of living within the past traumas of your life. Just as Will Navidson falls into obsessive exploration of the corridors and slowly loses his grip before coming out to the other end able to lay it all to rest and live his life, Steve obsessed over My House and got lost in its digital corridors until he could lay to rest the story behind it. But whereas Will was eventually saved by love, Steve was permanently locked out from the reality in which he could truly experience that. There's also the use of blue and red text. In House of Leaves, blue text is used wherever the word house appears, and red text whenever the word minotaur appears. This is never explained and has been deeply theorized about. I'm not here to go into House of Leaves, though I of course could in another video if you'd be interested. But the minotaur is an interesting one. In House of Leaves, in summary, the minotaur is struck out of the text and never truly appears, but its existence remains hinted at, a darkness behind the narrative, a story that nobody committed to telling. The use of these colours repeats in My House in the journal. House in blue, but this time, numbers in red. As I mentioned, I think this is to indicate the order of the dreams as an in-game hint, but also I think it can tie the idea of the dreams to the minotaur. The dreams are Steve's minotaur, something that isn't real to him, but another version of his reality, that stalks him and remains a dark, growling presence he can't fully escape. Something that could have been real, but instead haunts him with its unreality. There's a lot that we could say in regards to the use of formats here. The real-life book of House of Leaves is to the narrative of the internal books and stories what Doom is to My House. Both play with the formatting in a creative and stylistically unique way. It's very interesting how they both present their narratives in a similar way, but via different means. Like House of Leaves challenges what a book is supposed to be, My House challenges what a video game mod is supposed to be. Another reference within the game is maybe more obvious, that is to liminal spaces. Obviously the backrooms and pool rooms trends are rather blatant, plus the imagery of the brutalist apartments, and I think the Shrek in the school is meant to reference this image that went around a while ago, which is also tied to liminal spaces. Liminal spaces are in-between spaces by definition. I wonder if the use of these here is meant to communicate to us the map's position in this world, a limbo between the two timelines, the two versions of Steve and Tom. It really fits with My House's general sense of distant, darkened nostalgia, of half-remembered places that may or may not mean anything to you. In a way, the game turns the house itself into a liminal space. I think My House is fantastic. It's a really cleverly made, densely thematic, format-defying story, told within a Doom mod of all things. I love when creators do, well, exactly what this game does. My theory is only one of many possible options, but I don't think it's important to know exactly what the story being told is here. Its thematic narrative is incredibly solid and really well presented. Props to the creators and anyone who worked on this. I'm so glad this mod didn't get drowned in the forums. Thanks for watching today's Panopticon Theatre performance. What do you think? Did I miss anything? What do you want me to talk about next? Make sure to sub and join the audience if you want to see more.